Governor Gavin Newsom is firing back after the president's border czar threatened to arrest him.
Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy.
Tom Homan warned Newsom and LA's Mayor Karen Bass if they stand in the way of ICE raids, they'll be placed in cuffs.
Are you saying that about Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom? Are they at risk of being arrested?
I'll say it about anybody. You cross that line. It's a felony to knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien. It's a felony to impede law enforcement from doing their job.
President Trump seems to think it's a great idea.
I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing.
Governor Newsom blames the president for the chaos in LA, saying he's fanning the flames by sending in the National Guard. And he's also lashing out at Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth for threatening to deploy the Marines.
Pete Hegseth's a joke. He's a joke. Everybody knows it. So in over his head. What an embarrassment.
Trump is responding on social media. We made a great decision in sending the National Guard. If we had not done so, Los Angeles would have been completely obliterated. The very incompetent governor, Gavin Newsom, should be saying, "Thank you, President Trump. You are so wonderful. We would be nothing without you, sir."
Boy, and don't they know it. And live from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin Show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be That Donald Show. We don't have that, so we have That Kevin Show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, how China is waging war against the U.S. Adam Savit is here. Gabriella Hoffman of the Independent Women's Forum on this week's energy debate. Simon Hankinson of the Heritage Foundation and the unrest in L.A. And Aime Ichikawa on men and women's spaces. And Ed Sheeran returning to the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, where the only thing faker than a politician's smile is the vegan bacon, and the only thing louder than the taxis is his truth.
All right, welcome in. My truth's not that loud because it's not my truth. Truth is just truth. I can't take ownership of truth. There is no such thing as my truth versus, there's the truth. And then there's the not truth. So let's just get that cleared up, Mr. Pipes. I don't want to hear that on this show again. No more confusion. We're not one of these ooey gooey feel good, live by your feelings kind of shows. That's not what this is. Welcome in. Happy weekend to you, friends. It's not happy. It's not happy if you're an Iranian top-ranking military official. It's not been a happy weekend for you, and it shouldn't be. We'll get into that. My take on the biggest story straight ahead. But we got a huge show for you, and I'm so excited for all the experts that we've got coming up this morning. And we've got, I kid you not, I've never seen this happen. You know that we have a wide swath of comedy troops that help us with the sketch comedy for the show. Between cartoonists and literal troops of comedic actors and a whole bunch of different soloist actors, performers, etc. I've never seen all of them line up in a row and all kill the same story in 1 week. I've never seen this happen before. But this weekend, you had the Babylon Bee, you had Cribside Edition, you had Al Berry in the animated feature, you had all these people. You had Latinos for Trump. You had others that do sketch comedy and other things from time to time. You had all of them line up and take aim at Gavin Newsom and the ridiculous stupidity that he's been emitting in California. My state's getting burned to the ground right after I just burned half of it to the ground because I didn't supply the water for the people that were getting burned, 6 months ago. But now we've got like George Floyd or other type of violence that are all that's breaking out, and I won't do anything about it as governor. But I don't want the president to do anything about it either. So I said this on my show on Thursday. I'm a little ashamed that I did. I said, you know what? I'm glad that no one's going to take the president to court to try to stop his desire to help bring order to Southern California. And as the moment I said the words, somebody filed a lawsuit. And then a few hours later, there was a judge that said, well, now President Trump can't stop the violence. It's not his National Guard to command. And I thought, whose side are these judges on? The governor doesn't want to stop the violence. The mayor can't stop the violence. She's a complete nincompoop. And then you've got judges that are saying that the president can't call in the National Guard to help protect Americans from basically non-Americans attacking them, trying to destroy property and kill them. Look, I know what the thinking was in blue states during the George Floyd riots. President Trump's having none of that this go around. So I don't know what you people are thinking, but you need to think another time. And you know who agreed with him? You know who agreed with President Trump? And I was thrilled to see this happen. The craziest courts in the land, the Ninth Circuit, which is not as crazy as it used to be. It's got 27 judges on it, but it's not as bad as it used to be because Trump put a lot of really good justices in there when he was in office the last time. But on the Ninth Circuit, they said to the federal judge that tried to put the national injunction against the president not being able to take the National Guard, they said, nope, he gets to have the National Guard. He gets to try to help California. This is not going to happen. Now, they're going to have a hearing sometime next week, Tuesday, to try to see if Gavin Newsom can come up with some sort of argument that might meet muster. So there's a slim chance that the Ninth Circuit might revoke the National Guard from the president again, and it wouldn't be totally out of step for the craziest circuit to do that. But my point is, you've got one man in America that's trying to solve the problem. You've got one man doing it, and it's Donald Trump. And that's why and I predict if Saturday Night Live had been in session, which they're not right now, but if they had been, they would have hit the Gavin Newsom story because it is so absurd. Every comedic group on the internet hitting that this week, and for good reason. Now, the big story. Israel taking on Iran. Completely justified. Because Iran was able to do what they were able to do on October 7th. Wait a minute, Kev, I thought Hamas did the October 7th. Yes, they did. And where did they get paid? They got paid by Iran. They got paid because Joe Biden was letting Iran produce oil. They got paid because Obama and Biden were sending Iran pallets of cash. And then when Trump came in, he said, no more cash for you. And you don't get to make oil as long as you're threatening your neighbors and pursuing nuclear weapons. And the mullahs got vexed. And so when Biden got elected, they thought, yay, we're in charge again. And they were for 4 years. But this last week, the mullahs said to the Americans at the negotiations on the nuclear situation, they said, you guys go pound sand. And President Trump just kind of smiled, shrugged his shoulders and said, guys, I told you on April the 17th, if you didn't take care of this, it was going to be about 60 days before you were going to wish you had. And, oh, by the way, Thursday and Friday, that's day 61. So good luck there. Now, we didn't have anything to do with this. We didn't authorize it. I don't think we worked strategically with them. There was nothing that we did. And on some level, we didn't even know that they were going to launch it until just, a few hours beforehand. But here's the thing. Israel is doing the world a favor because right now, Iran can't make oil or sell it. So Trump has done his part. Israel's taking out their entire nuclear capacity. They're doing their part. Iran is going to be no longer the top terrorist state in the country, on the globe. And that's a great thing because these maniacal, crazy killers want to take out all the people that they dislike and disagree with. And we happen to still believe in America that the world should be able to have a degree of tolerance and diversity amongst the global nations. And furthermore than that, you want to kill us? You tell us you want to kill us? You say we're the great Satan? Israel's the little Satan, but the U.S. is the great Satan? We're not going to let you do that. Not on Donald Trump's watch. You're not going to get to, and the reports all said this, that Iran was within days of having not just the nuclear capacity to deliver a payload, but they were days away from an intercontinental ballistic missile that could hit the American homeland. People would have been furious with Donald Trump if he had stopped Bibi Netanyahu from going through with this, if that had in fact had happened. If a missile had taken out New York or Washington, D.C., or Miami, or Boston, or somewhere on the East Coast, we would have had another 9/11 on our hands. Israel prevented that. And so we all owe them a deep debt of gratitude this weekend for a safer world because they took actions. We've got a huge show. Ed Sheeran is back. Not one, but 2 new songs. Plus, lots of sketch comedy and lots of experts on all the breaking news. It's That Kevin Show. You don't go anywhere. McCullough. So glad to have you with us back at Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show on all social media, and thatkevinshow@gmail.com if you want to drop me a note. I still read my email. I don't know if everybody does, but I still tried to at least. My next guest is Adam Savit with the America First Policy Institute, and Adam's chief responsibility there is all things related to China. Adam, it's good to have you for the first time. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Last week, I read a story about a Chinese couple that was arrested. I don't know that it made major news across the country, but they were smuggling in deadly elements. What happened?
That's correct. So this was a couple that were researchers at the University of Michigan, engaged in a highly sensitive research area, a pathogen, a fungus that can affect crops, wheat, corn, rice, the basic things we rely on for foodstuff. So this is food security. It's also human health of humans and livestock. It can affect their health as well. This is also an economic issue because if you destroy the flow of food, our food security, we can start seeing bare shelves. It backs up. It affects literally everything. And unfortunately, this is more, this is the rule, unfortunately, not the exception, because we have partnerships at our universities with Chinese universities, our public universities with Chinese universities that are connected to the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. This is happening in the open. Now, the House Committee on the CCP released a report last year called CCP on the Quad that named and shamed 21 universities. One of those was the University of Michigan. To their credit, earlier this year, they ended that program, but unfortunately, there are other programs going under the radar, individual research partnerships like this that still exist.
So let me play the devil's advocate only for the purpose of getting the most accurate picture possible. This couple comes in with these pathogens. They transport them however they transported them. I don't know how you get through customs with something like that, although if it's small enough and it's in a Ziploc and it's somewhere buried in their luggage, I don't know. But do we have evidence, do we have knowledge that this couple or that others like them have attempted to release pathogens like this into the mainstream of American life? Have we had bad actors come in and try to do this to us?
I'm not aware of that in this case. I mean, I think it's still under investigation. We'll have to await what comes out in trial, once some of this is sorted out. But this is proof of concept of this kind of penetration. One of the things we do here at AFPI is we support laws that ban Chinese land purchases near military bases and infrastructure, dams, electricity plants, et cetera. And that's because, there are these actors, they call them non-traditional gatherers of intelligence. So these folks, whether on student visas or even tourist visas, or if they've walked across our southern border during the Biden administration, these folks can be activated, even if they're not willingly activated. There's something called the National Intelligence Law of 2017. This codified what the CCP does anyway, which is that they use their citizens overseas as collectors of intelligence. Now, unfortunately, the University of Michigan has been the center of this activity in recent years. There's 2 cases where their students have been surveilling military bases. One was a National Guard base within Michigan, where we were training Taiwanese soldiers. You couldn't think of something more sensitive regarding the CCP. University of Michigan students were also found down in Key West, where there is a naval air station. So this is across the board penetration. This is
so concerning. And last week or 2 weeks ago, when the Ukraine conducted that drone strike against Russia, I immediately wrote a column for Town Hall the next day calling for the reevaluation of every Chinese land deal in the country, because what that drone strike said to me is that if you can just get access, you can create a lot of problems. And if the Chinese wanted to, they don't have to come in and kill tons of Americans. They do need to take out defensive postures, but then they need to paralyze our infrastructure, our water and our electricity. And before you know it, you've got a nation that's really, on its knees over the blade. So what we've got going on here is, and it's not just us, by the way. They're doing this globally. They're taking over continents by, through strategic. They call it partnerships. I think it's kind of slavery, like what they're doing in Asia and in Africa with rare earth minerals and other things. They seem to call it a partnership, but they certainly have the upper hand and are certainly very tyrannical and kind of dictatorial in the terms. They're not hiding the fact that they want to be the dominant global superforce. Are we up for the fight?
You know what it comes down to? We need to reorient the way we think about this. And you're right, Kevin, by highlighting so many different aspects of society, economy, military, et cetera. What I've been pointing out with this student visa issue and the openness we have, and in the year 2000, we had about 60,000 Chinese students studying in the United States. That popped up to around 300,000 or over 300,000 in 2019, 2020. That corresponded when we opened up in trade and economy with China as well. That's when they entered the WTO. That's when we opened up our economy, started outsourcing manufacturing to China. The theory behind both of those was that would open up their society to our ideas, soften them up, or bring them into the family of nations the way we wanted, in harmony, but it was the opposite. Their influences came into the United States. They were able to penetrate on an intelligence level, on governmental, media. And that's the thing. Whatever part of our society we leave open, they will exploit. Now, we have certain tools. One of them is CFIUS, the Committee on Investment in the United States, Foreign Investment in the United States. That should be protecting some of our infrastructure, some of our technology, et cetera. But also, there's a lot of holes in that. That's why we support the state level legislation to get at some of this infrastructure protection. Now, Secretary Rubio has said he will go aggressively after student visas held by CCP members or associates, which, by the way, the woman in this Michigan case was, and those engaged in critical fields, which this couple was. So these are all the different avenues we need to stop them, all these different holes that we need to plug in order to address this problem.
Is there any chance that we believe, to the best intelligence that we have, that there was anyone else working with this couple? Because if they had the pathogens, did they have a chance to pass them off to anyone else? Is our food supply at risk? Are we at risk?
I haven't seen reporting on this case specifically. I am glad that we have Trump appointees in place at many levels at this moment. And, Kash Patel at FBI, I trust they will be investigating this and figuring it out. So I don't know about this particular case. But the problem is, like I said, this is proof of concept. It shows that we have such, so many gaps in our intelligence and our enforcement. And it's just a reminder to clamp down in general, including the border. So that's great that President Trump is actively, as we see, unfortunately, Los Angeles is sort of on fire regarding this, but we are taking action. We are changing that calculus. And, during the Biden administration, tens of thousands of Chinese citizens did literally just walk across the border. So imagine all of those, risks and loopholes, and we don't know where those folks are. So that's great.
It's kind of amazing because it doesn't matter if the bad guys are the communist Chinese or the Islamic Taliban. They all do the same thing. They probe and probe and probe and probe, and they find weaknesses, and then they exploit them. And I don't know what we were doing for the last 4 years except sleepwalking through to our own destruction.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
All right, friends, I want to say thank you to those of you who have started us off on the road this year to helping on our annual cause. We love doing this because it changes lives in such a huge way. And just a few weeks ago, I told you that there are 208 human slaves that we know the names of, we know where they are being held captive, we know how to negotiate their freedom, and we are bringing them home in the year 2025. And I want to say thank you because as of right now, we have seen 31 of those captives be liberated, be spoken for, be taken care of. And it's not just the liberation. There's a lot more work to it than that, because once you get them liberated, then you need to be able to provide them what is necessary for them to start their life over again. So you need to provide food, you need to provide some shelter from weather, you need to provide utensils that they can cook and clean and fish and do all that stuff with. And then there's a kind of a fun part of what your gift gives them, which is they get a female goat, a little female goat, and then they can use that, and it makes milk and cheese, and it has little tiny kidlets, and they are able to then create a life for themselves as a result. Friends, your gift today will help us continue to work towards that goal of getting all 208 human slaves liberated this year. So I've asked you in the past to be generous. Friends, this morning, today, this weekend, I'm asking you to be extra generous, and here's why. The McCullough family has decided that we are going to use more of our personal resources this year to challenge you, to encourage you to step forward and to say, I want to be part of this. So this weekend, we are going to match every slave that is liberated. And if you are actually thinking about doing it, and you've been saying, Kevin, I've been thinking about it, this is the weekend I want you to take care of that. I want you to do that, because we are going to step up and say, yeah, we're going to match that slave for slave. So here's what I want you to do. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. You can call and talk to someone, or you can just go online and give at bringherhome.org. Bringherhome.org will allow you to do that. Bringherhome.org or 888-342-1010. And nothing explains the story of how this all works better than hearing about one of the women personally. Take a listen.
My name is Nanya Newt. I was about 15 years old when I was captured. My mom had spent the last few days teaching me all about what it meant to be a good wife and a mom, showing me how to cook and sew. She had hoped I would get married in the future. One day I was out collecting firewood, and that was when the Arabs found me and captured me and took me to Sudan without the chance to tell my family goodbye. It took me many days to walk the complete journey. They gave us boiled sorghum as we went, and the men that had been captured with us faced grave dangers. They were considered to be spies, and most of them were killed right in front of us. Upon arrival in the north, I was sold to a master in Miriam village, and then I was sold almost as quickly to another Arab in McCullough Gate. He made me work for his family, sweeping the compound and washing the dishes. They worked me long and terrible hours, pounding sorghum, fetching water. And then they said in order to be a good Muslim woman, I would need to be circumcised. I was held down as it happened, and then I was forced to marry. Against my will, they forced me to work even when I was sick. If I did anything that made them angry, they would beat me. My master never bought me any clothes, never paid me for any of my work, and barely ever fed me. Then one day, I heard about a CSI retriever, and I ran to find them in the town. As it turned out, they were freeing slaves in my region, and they had not known about me. But I think God allowed me to find them because they brought me home. We walked that same journey back to South Sudan. And today I thank God because I am free. I thank the Arab retriever because he helped. I thank CSI and for those who gave. I cannot thank those of you who gave money to help us become free ever enough in all of my life. But I do hope that my prayer is answered, that we will not stop until they are all free.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. And we are talking with Gabriella Hoffman of the Independent Women's Forum, doing great work. Gabriella, we just had you on a couple of weeks ago, and the big, beautiful bill was in the House, and it hadn't quite come out yet. We were talking about energy subsidies. We were talking about some of the junk that was still in the bill that you kind of wanted to see taken out. You weren't the only one that didn't seem to like it, but maybe for different reasons. Elon Musk threw a temper tantrum the day after he left Doge, and he wasn't too happy about it. What's your take on that?
He's really big on clean energy subsidies, and he had in the past lamented ever taking a Department of Energy loan and actually railed against green energy subsidies. But for some reason, he's still sticking on them, especially with respect to solar. And he's a smart guy. I would think he would be a nuclear energy guy, but he's really banking on solar and saying that it's going to be the source of the future. I think that's what it's largely stemming from, maybe his personal investments in solar, and isn't seeing that protected under the House version of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So that's partly what we're seeing. We've seen some discrepancies over inclusion of certain clean energy credits that he wanted to keep in place, even EV credits. That's what one report is suggesting too, that he was upset with Speaker Johnson removing that as well. And now, since we last spoke, we have the Senate now deliberating the One Big Beautiful Bill, including those green energy provisions. And we did get a lot of, I would say, improvements. We didn't get full repeal because with just the numbers we have, it's impossible, unfortunately. But I was very pleased to see that the subsidies for mature subsidized solar and wind would be officially completed. It was very unclear in some of the initial text of the One Big Beautiful Bill. We now have some clarity as to when those would be terminated. But in the Senate, it could be met with more opposition because there are some Republicans who, again, did not vote for the IRA in 2022, but for some reason think they're perceived benefits. So there's going to have to be some pressure applied on the Senate Republicans. And hopefully they won't have mixed messaging, because you can't say you campaigned on repealing the IRA, so-called Green New scam, and then preserve tenets of it.
Well, and just to remind my listeners and viewers, the IRA does not stand for their individual retirement account.
Yes.
Which is
two distinct things.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this is, as the head of Doge, or the guy that was kind of spearheading it, he was running around finding waste and abuse in lots of areas of the federal government. If you take that same mindset and model and you apply it to what we have done on the energy issue over the last 4 years, It's been an anathema, and the stuff that the Biden administration and Autopen and everybody else helped authorize were things that did not in any way help the fiscal outcome of the American economy. And in fact, I would claim that they injured it quite a bit. And secondarily, did not do anything for the development of more energy. And thirdly, I guess my response to Musk would be, you know that solar is a lower efficiency form of energy. It and wind are like iceberg lettuce to the human body. You can live on them for a while, but they're not going to get you very far. And we're using, Gabriella, now, we're using more energy of every variety, including more fossil fuels than we've ever used before. Like our demand for fossil fuels, despite the kind of insane idea that they've put forward on the left that says, oh, well, we can just go zero, net zero on those by 2050. That's poppycock, because we're using more under the Biden administration than we did under the first Trump term. And we're going to use more under the second Trump term than we did under the Biden term. Those aren't going away anytime soon because they're dense and they burn differently than the units of energy that we get from solar. Nuclear obviously is kind of the nuclear option. It will be the best, most efficient form of energy, the faster we can move towards that. But this solar stuff is not working.
It isn't. And I think since we last spoke, well, it was probably a little after we last spoke or before we last spoke, that Spain had its first green electricity blackout and brownout. And there are more forecasted as more and more people are going to be consuming energy. And the interesting predicament for the greenies is that because their technology or the technology they're betting on does not work, it's not efficient, it's not reliable, you have to shore up fossil fuels and nuclear because those are reliable and can provide that dispatchable power and keep the lights on. And people are recognizing all across the world, not just here in the United States and even in Europe, that you can't have unreliable, insecure power because it could invite, reliance on dirty oil and gas from Russia in the case of Europe or China or Iran. Or you just see that the grid just cannot, grids are aging. They just can't sustain this injection of supposedly clean energy, but energy that is not reliable, that only works 25% of the year in the case of both wind and solar respectively. And that is why in the United States, we've had this move away from net zero energy subtraction to that of energy addition, energy abundance, because I would actually say, even if you're skeptical of artificial intelligence data centers or AI in general, it actually is a lifeline to keeping and having this morality behind continued oil, gas, coal consumption, because those sources, particularly natural gas and even coal, in addition to nuclear, are going to be needed and needed in the short term to power these AI data centers and other infrastructure projects that are consuming lots of energy. And we've had this notion that energy consumption is bad. It's going to lead to economic upheaval, environmental ruin, but that's not the case. And that is why you see this abundance movement gaining traction. The left is trying to be, embracing of this abundance movement, but they still don't understand that overregulation and, top-down directives just don't work and will not usher in abundance or prosperity.
Well, I don't think they understand the fundamental construct of even the science of energy. So it's like if you've got, formerly employed bartenders buying Teslas and preaching her philosophy to everybody, but it's not based on anything, it's not gonna help people. And I would just like to point out to all the people that are opposed to what you and I are discussing here, that in 2025, we used more hydrocarbons than we've ever used in the history of the world. And in North America, we used more than we'd ever used. And yet emissions were down 78% from where we were 30 years ago on this issue. So we are adapting, we are learning, we are emitting less, we are polluting less, we are being more responsible in the conservation and the preservation of the environment and the world. But America can't do it on its own. And until you get China and India to, deal into the game, you're not going to talk about a substantive change in global climate arguments anyway. So I say, America, let's do everything we can. Let's encourage good global stewardship, responsible behavior by our allies and enemies alike. And let's do this.
Ready or not, we'll be right back.
hell is everyone acting like I'm not doing anything about the mostly peaceful riots in Los Angeles? Can't they see I'm doing my job? I mean, for God's sake, it's not like anyone's setting things on fire. Besides, LA's still a wonderful place with great weather and the occasional 75,000 homeless people in the streets. It's like people expect me to do something every time slightly less than peaceful rioters blow up a few cop cars.
I know what you mean, Gavin. It's disappointing people be acting like we not doing nothing. So how much barbecue sauce do you want on damn ribs?
A lot. Hello? Since you refuse to handle the riots in LA, I'm taking matters into my own hands and sending the National Guard. No, Donald, you can't. If you do that, then it's gonna make it obvious I'm not doing my job. Gavin, these people are violent and they're destroying the beautiful city of Los Angeles. Oh, so all of a sudden a bunch of arsonists and looters terrorizing the streets of Los Angeles is a problem. I'll have you know it's been happening for years and I've never complained about it. Hang on, Donald, I'm getting another call. Hello?
Hi, Gavin. I'm just letting you know, if you close your eyes and pay no attention to the riots in LA, it'll seem like they're under control.
I knew it! Donald, if I close my eyes, the mostly peaceful riots are under control, so quit trying to make it seem like I'm not doing my job. Gavin, whether you like it or not, I'm sending the National Guard to stop the riots. Donald, that's appalling. If the National Guard is successful, all of my voters for the 2028 election will be deported. Do you know what that means? There's a chance not a complete piece of crap will be elected? No, it means I won't have a job to pretend to do.
2, 3, Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Votes.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, Simon Hankinson of the Heritage Foundation and the unrest that is LA. Also, Aime Ichikawa on men in women's spaces. Sketch comedy from Al Berry and Latinos for Trump. And digging up his old phone, Ed Sheeran returns to the spotlight. And now, from the heart of Times Square, where truth hits harder than a subway saxophone and satire stings sharper than a TikTok comment section, here, Kevin! Thank you, David. Bet you didn't have this on the bingo card. Who's the newest bikini exposer on Instagram? Nope. Candace Cameron. Let's get to the news.
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Gavin McCullough. This week on world events that sound like Mad Libs, Israel launched a precision preemptive strike on Tehran, catching Iran completely off guard. While Israel was playing geopolitical chess with laser pointers and night vision goggles, the mullahs were apparently still trying to read the instructions for Go Fish. The Ayatollahs responded with their usual bravado, calling it a declaration of war and vowing revenge sometime between Ramadan and never. Meanwhile, Israel calmly explained they're not at war with the Iranian people, just the folks who've been trying to wipe them off the map since disco was a thing. In an even more impressive feat of governmental theater, Iran immediately replaced its killed top military brass. That's right. Someone heard the job opening and said, "Hey, sign me up to be on the next vaporization list." Truly, Iran's promotion structure resembles a game of Russian roulette, except with fewer winners and more drones. And just as the world tried to breathe between explosions, Trump popped up like the world's most orange jack-in-the-box to declare Israel's next attack will be even more brutal unless Iran makes a deal. Translation: make peace or we'll turn your uranium into glass. Now, back here in the States, the judiciary has spoken. A federal judge had ordered Trump to hand back control of California's National Guard to Gavin Newsom, proving once again that legal decisions in California are usually made by a roulette wheel and a bottle of Merlot. Yes, apparently letting Trump stop rioting mobs was too effective. So back to you, Gavin. Good luck with that. Maybe if things get bad again, he'll just open another wine cave. Oh, wait, the Ninth Circuit just took the National Guard away from him again. More on the chaos in California. Here's the BBN's Kyle Mann.
As riots erupted across the city of Los Angeles this week, immigration officials expressed their gratitude to illegal protesters for helpfully waving the flag of the specific country they'd like to be sent back to. The undocumented immigrants took to the streets to protest the country they journeyed thousands of miles to get to, and proudly waved the flags of the countries they journeyed thousands of miles to leave. While ICE agents often have difficulty sorting out where to deport illegals, this time, the protesters helpfully identified their countries of origin with large waving banners.
As law enforcement officers, we really appreciate when the protesters put the big flag up there so we can just send them on their way. You know, I also can never tell apart the Chinese and the Koreans either. And that reminds me all of Southeast Asia, Laos, Cambodia. It's just a jumble of yellow down there.
Officials report that of the flags being waved in the recent protests, Mexico accounted for 67% of them, followed by Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. One liberal college student was also reportedly waving the flag of House Baratheon and was sent back on the first flight to Westeros.
Meanwhile, in airport news, Senator Alex Padilla got into a bit of a kerfuffle at the airport when Governor Kristi Noem's security team restrained him after allegedly ignoring their orders. It turns out being a U.S. Senator no longer comes with a force field of privilege, especially when walking into a restricted zone with all the situational awareness of a golden retriever on espresso and charging Secret Service. CNN quickly jumped in to defend Noem's team, leaving viewers stunned. Somewhere in a secure location, Don Lemon spilled his kale smoothie and whispered, "Wait, we're siding with law enforcement now?" And now to America's most important battleground, the summer fast food war. Fast food giants are unleashing the secret weapons like this is D-Day. Burger King has rolled out a double ranch rodeo crunch melt, which sounds more like an MMA finishing move than a sandwich. Taco Bell dropped something called the Spicy Lava Crunchadilla, which comes with a complimentary Pepto and a waiver form. And Chick-fil-A, still closed on Sundays and still winning. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
All of our Mexican and Hispanic families that are rioting in Los Angeles, thank you. Thank you for confirming every stereotype, every stigma, every rumor about Mexicans. In just 4 days, you were successful in turning the entire American population against us. Thank you for making all of us unsafe now. Thank you for putting an even bigger target on Mexicans and Hispanics across the board. Thank you for advocating for peace with the flag from a country that you won't live in, burning the flag of the country you want to live in. Thank you for the destruction of property that taxpayers pay for. Thank you for doing everything in the illegal criminal book that will get you locked up. No, and I truly mean it. Thank you because everything is so much better now. Thank you because I've never felt so safe in my life. I've never felt so good about being a Mexican or a Hispanic. I have never felt better about speaking in Spanish in public. I have never felt prouder than where my parents came from and what they instilled in us. When people are looking at all of these images of you guys assaulting officers and throwing bricks at cars and looting and burning up the American flags, like that is exactly what we've wanted. You are the exact people that do not belong in this country. You may be from Mexico, but if you live in this nation, your sovereignty, your support, your allegiance is to this country. How dare you wave a flag that has done nothing for you? How dare you raise a flag of a place you are not willing to live in? How dare you burn the flag of a people that you want to accept you? How dare you assault the officers that their entire employment is to protect you? How dare you put every Mexican, every Salvadorian, every Ecuadorian, every Colombian, every Cuban, everyone across the board in harm's way because of your stupid actions? Maybe behind bars or on the other side of a fence is where you actually need to be. Because all this nonsense that you're doing in this free nation of America, try doing that in the place of the flag that you're waving. Try going to Jalisco and do the nonsense that you're doing here. See if the cartels don't take you to the alley. No, please, go to Colombia, do the exact same thing, and see how the Colombian government's gonna treat you. Go to Ecuador, where people are running away because they don't feel safe there. Go there and do what you're doing here. See how they will willfully just accept you. We have become entitled children that act like children, talk like children, that do everything that resembles a lower class. And that is not what I stand for. That is not the Mexican heritage that I come
from. Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show on all social media, and thatkevinshow@gmail.com if you want to drop an email. We are constantly trying to think through the top stories of the day and make sure that in every way that it matters, that we are bringing you critical insight on what's going on. And over the last week, we have seen that the protests in the Los Angeles area have not done anything except really expose the underbelly of the problem of the crime situation that we have as it pertains to illegal aliens being here illegally, and that the Democratic Party seems to know precious little about anything about how to handle it. As I wrote in townhall.com this morning, you have got a situation where literally the president of the United States, whose responsibility it shouldn't be, is the only one trying to solve the problem by cutting off the illegal immigration at the border, and now also sending bodies to go deal with the riots that continue to break out. Simon Hankinson is a senior fellow with the Heritage Foundation, studying immigration and staying abreast of all these things. Simon, welcome to the show. Glad you're with us. As you've watched these heinous riots continue to break out night after night, what is your reaction?
Deja vu. We've seen this movie before. We saw the Rodney King riots in 1992 in LA. Before that, there were the Watts riots in '68, before my time. And then we had the BLM riots in 2020. And each time, the way the authorities react dictates the way people behave. If you go in hard and fast and you enforce the rules, people understand that and they back down and they demonstrate peaceably or not at all. And if you let them go, then the opportunists come in, the looters, the people who just like a bit of ultra violence and just want to break windows and steal stuff. And I'm afraid that's what we saw in LA.
But it's not just that. What you're getting is also a heaping dose of Kamala Harris, Hilary Clinton, and Gavin Newsom tweeting and texting and putting out statements and saying things. And as we learned just this week, Gavin Newsom's been bald-faced lying to people, saying the president never called, didn't even leave a voicemail. He left a voicemail, and then he talked to him for 16 minutes, and the president was smart enough to screenshot the receipts of the call. But you literally have the kind of symbolic heads of an entire political party representing half the voters of this country that seem to be more interested in telling falsehoods than they are about solving the actual problem.
I have a book coming out next month. It's called The 10 Woke Commandments You Must Not Obey. And chapter 1 is You Will Have No Borders. And there's another chapter called You Will Have No Nation. That stripped down is the philosophy of the globalist left at this point, and there is a significant chunk of the Democratic Party today that lines up with that. As opposed to, say, in the 1990s when Bill Clinton and before him Jimmy Carter, other Democratic presidents understood that they had to enforce the laws as they were written and that we would discuss them, debate them. But once Congress wrote a law and it was passed and the president signed it, it was their duty to enforce it. And globalists believe that there should be no borders. They do not believe that there should be enforcement of immigration laws. There's a hard left sort of subsection called the abolitionist movement. And that doesn't mean abolishing slavery. That's been done for 150 plus years. They mean abolishing the criminal justice system. Nobody gets incarcerated ever, and no one ever gets deported. And you're seeing that in real time, these politicians pandering to those voters, hoping that they're going to win their votes, but at the expense of civil life, public safety, and the United States itself.
I also think they're up against a very different culture now, because everyone is a cameraman. Every phone has a camera that is connected to the internet. And the level of transparency that people can see events unfold at now is far greater than it's ever been in the history. And so you have kind of these Democrat politicos that are like kind of stuck in like 1980s or 1990s kind of media cycle mentalities, where they're like, well, I'm going to issue a statement and it'll say thus and such. And then immediately you've got things on your screen that show the exact opposite of what's going on. So when Kamala Harris comes out and says, well, Trump started this. Well, no, people understand that Trump was the one trying to shut it down from the border north. And that, when Newsom says, well, Trump's inflaming this. No, they know that Governor Newsom's not doing anything about it. And we can see this now with this kind of veil lifted for the everyday American. And I also happen to think that because of how bad the last 4 years went, that people are paying a lot more attention for longer periods of time than they were maybe a generation or so ago, and they're not just letting stuff go. This is the same group. I mean, Gavin Newsom's the same governor. Karen Bass is the same mayor that less than a year ago watched a lot of Southern California burn out of control because they're abandoning of common sense policies when it came to just managing water. So what I don't understand is how the people of California, I don't understand how much more they can take. This is truly getting out of control, and the threats of it spreading to other cities and so forth. I guess we haven't really seen that to the degree that we did maybe in the George Floyd riots, but hopefully other governors and other mayors are not going to put up with this either. But this is a long history of, whether it's incompetence or on purpose, Simon, that the Democrats are going to have to face the voters with come, another election cycle.
Yes, and Chapter 7 of my book is you will trust the media. That's the commandment, but you can't.
But who is the media now? It's
exactly
not the bigs.
Look, it's guys like you. It's people like me writing for all kinds of different outlets. The media has splintered because people don't trust. And it's sad because I used to read the Washington Post every morning in hard copy, and I read the New York Times. They were a little left to center, but the news was news and the opinion was opinion. Now, I had an AP headline I read the other day, and it said something like, once again, federal troops going in to crush civil rights demonstrations in LA. I'm like, no, it is not a civil right to come into someone else's country, live there, and work. It is breaking their law. These are not civil rights protests. These are protests by people burning American flags, waving the flags of Mexico and other countries, and saying that our laws should not be enforced, that they get a veto over our laws. And the media simply doesn't cover it as a straight news story. They have an agenda that they want to push, and they will do everything they can to get you to think that way. And I don't think people are buying it. I think you're right.
Well, it's interesting because along that same line, kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, I saw an Instagram post yesterday of a Mexican-American man talking to his camera saying, let me understand this. You came here illegally because you couldn't stand the country that you lived in, yet you're going into our city, and he as a Mexican-American is identifying himself as an American, and you're coming into my city and you're waving the Mexican flag. As a Mexican-American, I reject that. I'm an American. We wave the American flag, and the duality of even the message of the protest is crazy, because it's like you left that country supposedly because you needed to come here because of how bad it was, and yet you want to wave their flags in the middle of our space. Simon, give the information on your book one more time. I want people to get a copy of it.
It's called The 10 Woke Commandments You Must Not Obey. It should be out in early July from Academica Press.
All right. The 10 Woke Commandments.
Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Times Square, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show. Aime Ichikawa is my guest, and she's an ambassador for the Independent Women's Forum, but she's also the head of Woman to Woman, a nonprofit in California that is helping to preserve the safety and dignity of incarcerated women. She is very concerned after a brief stint behind bars herself about the safety of others. And Aime, I think that you're a courageous person and you're speaking up at a courageous time. It is not popular to go against the trans movement in any way, and there's been this belief from the highest offices of the land that those arguments that side is making is correct. And I can't think, as the father of a daughter, I can't tell you anything I'd fight harder for to the death if I had to than my daughter's safety and her security and her dignity. So this is more than just a news story to me. This is an issue that we as a culture have to address and have to correct if we want to be, any kind of decent society going forward. Having said that, you're in probably the toughest state to fight this in. That California or Massachusetts, you take your pick. Those are probably the two worst ones. But is there a plan? How do we fight and how do we change it? How do we eventually win on this issue?
Well, it's got to be a multi-pronged attack. I consider this a war. So encirclement tactics, I feel like we're going to have to come from the outside and the women are going to have to work from the inside, and then we can smash the opposition. We need federal and state legislation. We really need some congressional hearings. We need to get these women's testimonies on the record. People need to hear this. No matter what happens, the most important part is getting their voices restored and forcing the legislature to hear what is actually happening, because nobody's listening, not to either side.
Hold on just 1 second. Have you had direct contact with Mike Johnson or any of the House leadership?
No.
All right. Here's what I want everybody watching and listening to do. Take a pen right now. 202-224-3121 is the number. 202-224-3121. Kev, why do you have that number memorized? That's the Capitol Hill switchboard. You call your congressman, you call your congresswoman, your representative, you call your senator, and you say, I want hearings on women's safety in prison, and I want them now. They will keep track of how many phone calls they get, and they will say, oh, there's people out there that care about this, and we need to do something about it. Sorry, Aime, I just want people to always be ready to jump into action when we move on this, because without us speaking as a country to the people that we've elected, they won't do anything. So we have to make them understand that we're still the boss and they do what we say.
And this is what, once we get hearings on the Hill, we can start to overhaul, or at least consider overhauling PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which would impact women from county jails, mental hospitals, juvenile halls, all the way to the federal prisons, because the standards that are written there, the guidelines, don't do anything to consider the safety and well-being of women. That was specifically written for, sensitive men in prison. So they need to rewrite it and take all parties involved into consideration.
Well, and I think that there's some logical steps that you can take to address this. You can have private areas for people that are gender confused or what have you. If you have people that are genuinely in trouble in one section of the men's prison, put all the people that are vulnerable in another section of the men's prison. That's not the women's prison's problem. Is my basic bottom line. Men and women are different. We have biology that's different. We have bone structure. We have muscle mass that's different. And it's absolutely ridiculous that we continue to pretend and play this game of imagination that everything is one and the same. Let me let you give a little plug to what you're doing. And if people want to get involved with your organization, how would they best be able to be of help to you?
Oh, please check out we have a new webpage on our website at www.womaniwoman.org, specifically talking about Senate Bill 311 that was authored by Senator Shannon Grove and co-authored by Senator Megan Dolley. And this would create a situation that is what was originally advertised to the women in the California state prisons. This would prohibit sex offenders from qualifying for a transfer, and it would create a separate housing area within the women's prison for transfers from the men's facilities. So they would still technically be programming and working together, but not sleeping and like cohabiting together. So,
yeah, you're being far more gracious than I would be. Ship all those people back to the other place. Let them worry about it. It's their problem.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
All right, friends, welcome back. Just a couple of things. Did you know that everything we do is online at thatkevinshow.com? And it's through our friends at Salem Media Group. It's been improved and significantly will be doing a lot more than it has been doing. But all of my radio, all of my different areas of interest. You know that I do one broadcast a week that's just focused on entertainment and tourism in New York. I do another one that does travel across the country and around the globe. And then everything else we do is news of the day, kind of top stories of the day, and you know what we think about it and how it impacts us and so forth. And then, of course, all of our That Kevin Show TV shows are there. And we would love for you to interact with us there. And the reason that I'm pointing you there is because there is also a place where you can subscribe to my new travel publication called That Passport Life. And That Passport Life is custom content about the greatest places to travel to and about and to see. It's loaded with visuals. We think you're really going to love it. And I've got some great contributors that are on the staff that are helping us put it together. It's a really special publication. I'm really proud of it. And there are more than 500,000 people a week that get it and that are enjoying it, and they're telling their friends. It's an incredible thing, and I hope you can join us. So go to thatkevinshow.com and subscribe to the That Passport Life publication. You can also get my Video Insider email, which is a kind of fun one. It gives you just a little snippet of something kind of tasty on video every day. And I hope you'll check that out as well when you go to thatkevinshow.com. All of it's free. I never put anything behind a paywall. None of the podcasts, none of the highlights, none of the newsletters, nothing. You get everything from us at gratis. We just want to get the information in your hands and hope that it will be of help to you. Now, I want to say thank you to those of you that have been joining us on the journey for helping us liberate slaves this year. Because of your faithfulness, we have already, and we just started a few weeks ago, liberated 31 human slaves in Sudan, where we've spoken for them. The liberations kind of happen at kind of key junctures throughout the year, and we can't ever tell you the date ahead of time. We can tell you when we've completed one, but we can't tell you ahead of time because we don't want to jeopardize the negotiations and everything else. But Northern Sudan has 185,000 women and children in captivity at the peak of the Sudan Civil War. We've gotten that number down now to roughly 35,000, we think, somewhere in that neighborhood that still remain in slavery. And Christian Solidarity International, my good partners on this, have been the only people that have been speaking up and doing anything about it. Well, having said that, we are trying to liberate another 208 of those human slaves. We know their names, we know they're at, we know how to go and help them not only be free, but then we will resource them. We will give them a year's worth of food. We will give them a year's worth of seed. We will give them an additional set of utensils to cook and clean and fish with. There's for the women, there are feminine products that we make available. There are things that they need to just get by in life, like tarps and blankets. But then there's also a little she-goat that they get that will help them not only make cheese and milk and stuff like that, but then they can breed and sell the kidlings to other people and have like a little job, a little source of income for their family. So we hope that you will help us accomplish all of that. 888-342-1010 is the number. 888-342-1010. If you call, it costs $250 to help one woman. There are 208 on our list, but now that number's down to 177 because of the 31 that have been spoken for. Over the years, we've liberated almost 5,000 of these women, and now even some of their children have been freed as well. So will you help us? 888-342-1010. Listen to how it impacts their life.
My name is Nanya Newt. I was about 15 years old when I was captured. My mom had spent the last few days teaching me all about what it meant to be a good wife and a mom, showing me how to cook and sew. She had hoped I would get married in the future. One day I was out collecting firewood, and that was when the Arabs found me and captured me and took me to Sudan without the chance to tell my family goodbye. It took me many days to walk the complete journey. They gave us boiled sorghum as we went, and the men that had been captured with us faced grave dangers. They were considered to be spies, and most of them were killed right in front of us. Upon arrival in the north, I was sold to a master in Miriam village, and then I was sold almost as quickly to another Arab in McCullough Gate. He made me work for his family, sweeping the compound and washing the dishes. They worked me long and terrible hours, pounding sorghum, fetching water. And then they said in order to be a good Muslim woman, I would need to be circumcised. I was held down as it happened, and then I was forced to marry. Against my will, they forced me to work even when I was sick. And if I did anything that made them angry, they would beat me. My master never bought me any clothes, never paid me for any of my work, and barely ever fed me. Then one day, I heard about a CSI retriever, and I ran to find them in the town. As it turned out, they were freeing slaves in my region, and they had not known about me. But I think God allowed me to find them because they brought me home. We walked that same journey back to South Sudan. And today I thank God because I am free. I thank the Arab retriever because he helped. I thank CSI and for those who gave. I cannot thank those of you who gave money to help us become free ever enough in all of my life. But I do hope that my prayer is answered, that we will not stop until they are all free.
Friends, you've helped us free 31 so far, but there are another 177 women that are in captivity, with some with children, that we could liberate right now. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, or just go to bringherhome.org, bringherhome.org. And again, the McCullough family matching every slave that you free this weekend.
That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.